In this video, I'm going to be talking about ransomware groups and ransomware gangs on the dark web, and we're going to be researching, we're going to be analyzing some raw data pulled directly from the dark web and putting together a cybersecurity project on this. So if you're a cybersecurity student looking to put together similar projects and research, or if you're a professional that just wants to learn more about ransomware gangs, their activity, how they operate, some of the patterns that we can pick up from the data that we're seeing, then this video is for you. So I'll start with a little bit of an introduction on the raw data, where we're getting it from, and some of the tools needed to do this project. Everything is free, it won't cost you anything, and this is a great project to go on your CV. And if you want to get better at creating CVs, then check out my CV and resume course that I will also link in the description. But yeah, more on that later. Let's get into it. So to begin with, we need to understand where we're going to be pulling this data from. There's this amazing project based out of the UK called Project Knapweed. This is a group of highly experienced cybersecurity professionals who basically scrape the dark web and look for information posted by these ransomware groups. So just for a little bit of context, when a company is hacked and their data is stolen or exfiltrated, what will happen is on the dark web, shortly after that time, if negotiations have fell through and the ransomware group couldn't get the payment that they were looking for, they will post and announce that they've got this data up for sale. And normally what they'll do is post like a file tree or some evidence of the data that they have, and then other malicious actors can buy that data. So what this group does is essentially monitor that activity all across the dark web. Over 150 ransomware groups are tracked in this way, and then they post this data publicly, and it's used by so many reputable organizations, which include like the National Crime Agency, a lot of the government, local authority, blue light services here within the UK. I have spoken and had communication with some of the guys that work here, and honestly, they're just amazing guys who do a lot of great work pro bono just to give back. Most of the time, these types of services are charged, and there's not a lot of people actually doing this research, believe it or not. This is a huge gap within cybersecurity, in my opinion, where nobody actually goes to the dark web and validates these data breaches. You'd expect, the police or some sort of organization like that affiliated with, national security to be doing this kind of research, and I'm sure they probably are in certain pockets, but this isn't information that's accessible to smaller government authorities and hospitals and other kind of public services here within the UK. So this group, Project Knapweed, fills that gap, and they do amazing work. So just to show you a little bit of the kind of stuff they will be doing. Obviously there's a lot on the back end of what's going on here, but this is an RSS feed that I'm subscribed to, and if we click on any of these, there's so many here, and they're essentially daily. So every day there'll be a posting on new ransomware attacks that have been detected. So let's say we were to take a look at this one. There are 13 new attacks that were reported by the dark web ransomware gangs that we are tracking. These are as follows, and it will just have a list. So the data in this format is a bit difficult, and this work is currently sponsored by High-Tech, so shout out to High-Tech because they're a private organization that make this research possible. And what we have here is essentially a CSV file of a complete list of all the data that they have picked up over the past 5 years or so. So Project Knapweed has only actually been active for about 2.5 years, since about summer 2022. Data before that won't provide the complete picture, and that's something that I've called out in the research paper that I've written on this, which we'll get into in a minute. But for now, let's just analyze the raw data a little bit. Essentially, this is what the CSV looks like. We have the dates and times, which is a very important column and gives so many insights, which we'll see in a minute. And then you've got the name of the ransomware group and the post title. This is the title of the announcement that they made, and typically the ransomware groups will make the post title the title of the organization that they've hacked, or some information about the types of data that they've got within that dump, or maybe even the website's email address so people can check it out. So only 3 columns. Analyzing this data won't be too difficult, but the insights will be amazing that we draw from it. This is what we have to work with. This is a raw data, and I know and trust this source personally. However, just keep in mind that if you're conducting a similar research project, you can use other data sources at your will, or even better, combine multiple data sources to create a more comprehensive research piece or report or whatever it may be. That's it for the raw data. What I will will quickly say as well, in terms of tooling, which I think is very important, I personally have been playing around with Cursor IDE. This is the first time I've used it. Essentially, it's a fork of VS Code with AI on top. And I know AI has its positives and negatives and a certain reputation that's kind of weird in the industry. But to be honest, this IDE was so easy and made this whole project so much quicker, because I'm still learning Python and I'm a bit of a terrible coder, to be honest. So it helped me when I was stuck and made this project 10 times easier. And the last thing I'll say is kind of about the format of the report. So the format that I chose to use for this report was a Jupyter notebook. And essentially what this does is give you the ability to write text, write code in the same article or blog that does things and executes and pulls a certain result. And then you have the ability to make commentary on it. It's an amazing format. I messed around a lot with this and made so many mistakes because I was trying to do it on the online version in the browser. Then I tried to install it locally and broke so many things on my laptop that I had to fix while I was trying to get this up and running. Honestly, I sunk hours into this bit, but eventually I learned that you could just open the format in a code editor like VS Code and Cursor, and that's kind of why I ended up in that direction. But yeah, that's kind of the format of this report, and I've also published a Substack article which will also be linked in the description. Anyway, let's dive into some of the code and some of the insights from the first section of this project. So the first section of this project and some of the things I wanted to draw insight from in regards to this raw data is basically looking at who are the most active groups, who are the top threats in terms of ransomware gangs, who should organizations be aware of, that kind of thing. So on screen, I've got the raw data, which I've pulled into my Cursor IDE here. And I wrote some Python code and I outputted it into an image, and I've messed around and done quite a lot of different things with that output. But essentially what I want to do is just basically count the unique names, how many times they occur within our data. It's over 15,000 rows, so we want to automate this because it's a lot of work to do this manually. And I will say there are other ways we can do this. We don't have to use Python, but I've chosen to do it just so I can learn more about Python in this whole process. I've used a pandas library within Python, and I've also used matplotlib in another section, but we'll get into that in a second. So what the code is doing here essentially is quite simple. Essentially, we're reading the file to begin with, and we're adding a little bit of kind of error correction here that ignores any roles that might be malformed or have special characters and that kind of thing, because the first time I'd done this I did get a lot of errors back, so I had to add this to kind of handle that. And then essentially what I've done is create a variable just to count and sort the groups, and we can store that data within that variable. And then I've printed various bits of information, bit of a header, calculating it into some percentages, a little bit on the formatting, and printing it. So if we were to look at a chart of what this looks like, this is the top 15 most active ransomware groups, and I decided not to include visuals in my final research piece. I actually removed that code, but that doesn't really matter too much, but this is just a way to visualize it. So as you can see, Lockbit 3, Lockbit 2, Ransom Hub are kind of the top three, and obviously Lockbit is just dominating this whole thing. And this is the article in one of its raw formats. I have tweaked and uploaded this into Substack, so it will all be there with the code to test this yourself, and of course link in the raw data that I used. But this is essentially the output, so similar to that PNG that I've just shown the image. And what we do notice here is this kind of a long string of less active ransomware group, which is actually quite interesting. Although Lockbit dominates in terms of the amount of attacks, that's probably the most sophisticated ransomware group out there. There are so many others that exist that haven't really done many attacks. Now all of this data is super interesting, and we can look at it from so many different angles. Firstly, Lockbit stands out as the most active group that we're aware of, and the top 10 groups are responsible for a lot of the attacks and breaches. But while the top groups seem to dominate, there's also a very long tail of less active groups, which indicates the presence of small, short-lived type entities. And there's a lot of theories on this, and I've spoken to a few people, but this could even possibly indicate legitimate cybersecurity employees who work for organizations that dabble in the ransomware ransomware kind of scene and then maybe go back to formal work. Obviously, there's no way to prove this, but this is one of the theories of these kind of less active groups that don't do this for a full-time job. Also, there's a lot of movements and breaks between the groups and quite dynamic and changing. Some people might leave a ransomware group that they're part of and try and start their own and maybe do that for a short period of time before moving back to another ransomware group or the same ransomware group. In terms of actionable insight for organizations from this piece of data is to kind of analyze the tactics, techniques and procedures, TTPs, of the top actors like Lockbit, because they have certain ways they attack and certain exploits they like to use, and then focus on protecting against those, because that's the most likely way you will be exploited from one of these larger groups. And another thing, it's also important to kind of track and be aware of these new groups that are emerging, because this is a very dynamic landscape that shifts very quickly. The variety of activity really creates a need for organizations to stay adaptive and dynamic as well, to adjust to the different changes within the landscape and the threats that they may see. More than anything, I think this bit of data really just illustrates the complexity and the dynamic nature of ransomware gangs and postings on the dark web, and really calls for organizations to be ready to deal with an evolving and changing threat ecosystem. Now we're going to get onto the second part, which I think is a lot more interesting and we can draw a lot of great insights from. So the second bit of code is focused on the dates and the times and trying to see when these ransomware gangs are actually posting and telling the dark web and the internet that they've breached an organization. For this, we used pandas again and the date time just to help with the formatting of the date time. Again, some kind of error handling with the data. What we had to do is kind of clean the data a little bit so it's in a consistent kind of format, just in case there were other errors, and be able to count on the data. Obviously, this code is available for you to review, so take a look at it. But I wanted to split this up into like most active hours, days, months, years, that kind of thing. And I've got a quick image here split over like a 24-hour period to show you what hours are most active. There's some interesting things we can pull from this, but because ransomware gangs are pretty much global, so time differences kind of skews this data a little bit, and it would be a lot easier if we were like analyzing ransomware groups from a specific region to see what times are most active. But yeah, anyway, this is the output that I have in here again, and looking at things like the 5 most active hours during the day, most active days of the week. When you see attacks here, it's important to note that this isn't actually the time that the attack took place, but it's the time that the ransomware group made that announcement. I did mess up a little bit here and had someone correct me and help me with this, so I made that assumption early on. So you might see it sprinkled here in this article, but in the final one that I published I did clean all this up, so it shouldn't contain references to attacks by day of week, but I changed it to announcements or postings. Nevertheless, the kind of insights are very similar, and also I've converted this to kind of UK time because it's where I'm based. But yeah, with those caveats out the way, let's discuss some of the insights that we drew from this. One of the most important things I think we can get from looking at this data is that the attackers are strategic with when they post. They tend to post during business operating hours to maximize the disruption that they cause to the business. Although a lot of companies and organizations pick up on this later on, the intentions here of when they decide to declare that they've breached and that they're selling an organization's data tends to be midweek. There tends to be a peak that correlates with seasonal business trends, financial reporting cycles and that kind of thing, which is super interesting. These are organized groups. They're not a group of people that are just literally hacking an organization and impulsively posting and making an announcement to sell their data as soon as it's done. They're waiting and being strategic with when they decide to make this announcement so that they can interrupt the business as much as possible, with the intention that the business will possibly just pay because there's so much going on at that point in the year or that point in the month, and they won't have the resources to deal with it effectively. And there's kind of consistent high activity between midday and evening, suggesting that attackers kind of operate during standard working hours in certain time zones. It's almost treated like a day job for these attackers. This isn't some person in their grandma's basement hacking organizations. This is similar to literally office personnel who probably wake up, have their morning coffee, begin to hack organizations, and finish at 5 to 6 p.m. when they're done for the day. That is one of the insights that we're kind of seeing from this data, is that a lot of it occurs within office hours. And I think there's two things to it. One, the attackers, have families. They are people at the end of the day, so they probably still have to take their kids to school and spend time with their families on the evening, that kind of thing. So they're hacking and breaching organizations around their normal commitments. Another thing is the campaigns seem to ramp up just after summer, which could indicate that there's a lot of malware development and planning and preparation that goes around after summer, which again further just re-emphasizes a point of very well planned, very strategic, and with a deep understanding of how to cause maximum disruption to businesses. So yeah, those are the kind of main insights that we've gotten from just analyzing this data in two different ways. Of course, there are a lot more ways you can look into this. Now, another thing we can do to make this project and research even better is by pulling information in from other resources. So this is Google's cybersecurity forecast for 2025, and although the data is kind of 2020 to 2025, this forecast is slightly further ahead of where our raw data is. It's still very useful to understand, and these are the kind of things that we can pull from to include in our research, because obviously Google is a very reputable organization for this kind of research too. And I'll just mention one thing. There is a section in the report that talks about the big four. Lockbit are suspected to be Russian, or at least Russian speaking. There's no way to definitively confirm this, but that's just what some of the evidence points to in other research and background on the group. This is done through analyzing comments and stuff within the malware and code and the languages and time settings, and also some IP addresses where they point to where they originate from, that kind of thing. Although a lot of proxies and VPNs can be used to bounce stuff around, so that's not always 100% reliable. But Google think that Russia are going to be one of the top cybersecurity threats, and this is kind of well understood within the industry. And they are saying that the Ukraine conflict will be the primary focus of Russian cyber espionage, cyber attacks, and other operations. And essentially a lot of this cybersecurity activity is essentially focused on furthering their global interests as a nation, targeting a lot of governments, politicians, civilians, critical infrastructure, journalists, and a lot of European and NATO member countries. So using this information and data that we can pull from other resources and reference and cite properly, you can further enrich some of the research and really highlight and support some of your findings. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because the project doesn't have to stop there. You can take this a lot further if you wanted to. So yeah, I've included the article in the description. You'll find some information. Hopefully this video helps you to replicate this project if you wanted to. And this is a perfect kind of project to go into your CV. If you're applying for cybersecurity jobs, doing high quality projects like this will help you. But it's not just about doing projects and certifications or having degrees. It's also about how you create your CV. Your CV is the first thing that people are going to look at when you're applying for a job. So your CV, resume has to tick all the boxes, and I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people reach out to me. I actually have 2 calls right after this filming to help some friends with their CVs and resumes. A lot of people just don't know how to create them, and I've got sick and tired of just constantly repeating the same advice, doing the same thing for different people. So I've spent a lot of time over the past few months planning and creating a CV resume course focused on cybersecurity that gives you everything you need to create a killer CV and get the job of your dreams. So if you want to create a better cybersecurity CV, then check that out in the description. There are so many resources with the project, including templates of other CVs. I talk about the industry, give you frameworks and how to create your CV, and examples we walk through together, improvements we can make, talking about the formatting, some background about the application process, and some introductory information you need. Honestly, I've put a lot of effort into this, and hopefully if you decide to purchase it, it can get you the cybersecurity job that you've been looking for. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you've got this far, I'm sure you found this valuable or useful. So please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.